I'd like to take you back, if I may. I'll take you back 10 years and tell you my background, and in doing so hopefully you'll understand why, even more so, I wanted to start my Think Amy campaign. So back in 2003 I lived in London and I was married to a man called Andy, and at the time I had 2 children, Ben and Amy, and in that year my husband developed a brain tumour, a very strong cancerous brain tumour, and he died. He died of the result of that. So we're now in the year of 2005. Ben is now 10 and Amy is now 8. Now I worked as a part-time receptionist at a sports centre on Blackbrook Way, and that evening, which was Wednesday the 15th of June 2011, Amy called me about 6:10 to say that she'd like to go on a bike ride with our neighbour Lucy, who is 24. And she said, "Don't worry Mum, I'm just going to stay to the cycle paths. I don't like the roads are dangerous." And as always, ended our conversations with, "I love you, see you later." And that was the last time I spoke to Amy. Amy and Lucy then cycled past at approximately 7:34, and I didn't see them because I was still dealing with the end of the queue. By 7:35, Amy was dead. And the reason being, there was 2 people that night who had decided to go out for a drink to a local pub in separate cars. They left the pub at around 7:30, and there was a female and a male, and the female was 20 years old who was dating an older man who was 42. And strangely enough, you wouldn't think so, but it was a female who instigated a race home, and she wanted to show her boyfriend that she was a better driver. A game started. She wanted to give him a race. So they left the car park with eyewitness accounts saying, like a bat out of hell, smoke coming from their tyres. She screeched to a halt. People looked because what's going on? And then she looked over her shoulder and smirked at him, and then sped off. They sped around the forecourt of a garage, and she went to go down a bus lane, missed the turn because she was driving too fast. She sped around again and then cut down the bus lane. We have CCTV coverage of this. Everything that I'm telling you is fact. Everything has been verified by CCTV and eyewitnesses. She went down that bus lane at 50 miles an hour, came to a roundabout and careered onto Blackbrook Way. Now Blackbrook Way is a 30-mile-an-hour road, and you have the sports centre on one side and a housing estate on the other. Amy had just cycled past with Lucy, and these people were racing and chasing each other, and the female was driving at 65 miles an hour and he was chasing her doing 81. A lady had pulled out from the car park with 2 children in the back of the car, and she came to do her turn, and she was faced with 2 cars side by side. There was going to be a head-on collision. She came to a stop and flashed her lights at him to say, "What are you doing?" He then cut in front of his girlfriend on the bend, lost control. He was doing a motorway speed, hit the curb, came across the grass verge onto the cycle path and footpath, and killed my daughter instantly.
Our sister Joanne was the first one to get to her phone, and I realised straight away that she was talking to my sister Jane. After a short while, Joanne came off the phone and I could see from her face she was in deep shock, and she just said, "We've lost Amy." And I just thought, she's lost? What do you mean she's lost? Where has she gone? Where can she be lost? And she said, "No, we've lost Amy." And I just knew straight away.
What I was first aware of was banging on the door with his fists, and his face was white, it was ashen. Mum, Mum, she's been hit, she's been hit. I knew. As Amy's mother, I knew. I ran from the desk and we both ran out to the corner of the road together, and there was now a large crowd that had gathered. And what I remember, looking back now, is the silence. I saw the ambulance, I saw the blue flashing lights, but you could hear a pin drop. The crowd was silent and they were working furiously on Amy. She had died instantly. And they tried working on her for 55 minutes, and the doctor came up and he was crying and he said, "I'm so sorry. We've not had a heartbeat since the moment we got to her." And I said, "Please try. Please pull her back." They tried for another 15 minutes and he came back to me and I said, "Okay, let her go." But in fact, she'd already gone. She'd gone. It's something that no parent should go through. And the reason why I was telling you before about my husband's death, that was a cancer, that was a natural death. His body created that. There is no cure for brain cancer, not for all types. And my husband's type was incurable. And I can sit and talk to you and be at peace with that now, 10 years on, because it was a natural death. It was nobody's fault. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't society's fault. It wasn't my fault. He died a natural death. Amy. She was 13 years old. She was happy, she was healthy, she had a whole life ahead of her. And the only reason why my daughter is not with me today is because of the choices that two people made that night. Very bad choices. They chose to drink. They chose to drive their cars. They chose to drive at motorway speeds, and they chose to drive in a dangerous manner. And the consequence of those choices was they killed my daughter. And so I started a road safety campaign in her name, in her memory, called Think Amy. And the reason for that was I do not want this to happen to anybody else. And if by telling Amy's story, if by telling my story, if that helps to make somebody else think, somebody else out there who is a driver, who maybe drives a little bit too fast or doesn't consider the law and the law that you must abide to when you drive a vehicle. You must drive safely, you must wear your seatbelt, you must drive within the speed limits. And there's people out there who just don't abide by those rules. And so I appeal to them to think, Amy, when you're in a car, think about the consequences for yourself, think about consequences for your passengers, and also think about the consequences of people around you.
The work that my sister is doing with Think Amy is to raise awareness and to educate people in the dangers of driving recklessly, dangerously, at high speeds, under the influence of drink or drugs. This sort of behaviour behind the wheel of a car kills. And fortunately for us, as I say, it took our darling Amy, and quite often the people who caused the accident to happen walk away from it unscathed. And that's what we need to do. We need to raise awareness and understanding, and in doing that, if we have to tell our story, then that's what we'll continue to do.
Think life, think safety, and for me, think Amy.